Theirs is a relationship that goes back the better part of 4 decades. Ron Wilson and Brian Burke finally together here with the Toronto Maple Leafs. A look back and a look ahead in our recent conversation. Guys, you've known each other for the better part of 35 years. This working relationship is now approaching 35 days. Any surprises from either of you?
I'm surprised I've lasted this long, to be honest with you. No, it's to me, for me, it's a bit of a dream come true. We talked. I don't think we could ever imagine that this would happen back when we were at Providence College, and we were best of friends at Providence, and we've remained close. But you never envisioned something like this happening, and I speak for myself. It's really been a lot of fun so far, and I can only imagine the good times we're going to have when we put a great team on the ice together.
Same. Ronnie was a much better player than I was at Providence. I didn't have any aspirations even of playing professionally, let alone working in the game. So to end up together at a storied franchise like this, I think it's beyond my dreams. Certainly, I agree with what Ronnie said.
Some might refer to you two as type A personalities. I'd like to refer them vibrant personalities. Are you surprised that you've been able to maintain friendship as long as you have, given the personalities from each of you?
Well, we've never really worked together, so that's the grand experiment. But I don't think I would classify Brian as type A. I'm actually a lot more laid back than people would ever realize. I think Brian understands that more, but when I'm around the rink, yeah, I guess I am type A. I'm very competitive and want to win at everything that I get involved in, but in my real life, I think I'm pretty laid back.
Friendships require compromise, and I guess that's what I'm leading to. I know you've only worked with each other for the better part of a month, but to maintain a good friendship, there's got to be an understanding and compromise, I think, Brian.
Well, I think if you ask any coach that's worked for me, they'll tell you it's a dream job because I don't want to coach. I don't think I know as much about coaching as Ron Wilson does, or Randy Carlisle did, or Mark Crawford, or Paul Holmgren. And so I'm easy to work for because I leave the coaches alone. I think, and especially where it's a coach I respect. And I think the high point of our season here so far has been the coaching. I think has been terrific. I think our team believes in our system. We play our system. We stay within our structure. We don't quit. These are all the positives that I think a coaching staff brings. So I don't know about the compromise as much as a division of labor and a respect for the other person, which we both have.
And I think a respect for what each other does. Ron, you're the coach. Brian, you're the general manager. And I guess there's an acceptance of each of your roles.
Well, I feel the same as Brian. I don't ever want to be a general manager. I love what I do. It's the next best thing to playing. And the big difference is obviously you're responsible for 23 guys on your team. Plus, basically, you've also got some kids in the minors, too, that you're keeping an eye out for. So that's the difference from playing, but this is so much more enjoyable because it is like raising children. You get to live kind of an experience over again the things that you did, but the second time around when you do it with your players is so much more enjoyable because you know how difficult every task is that they accomplish.
As tough a persona as you may come off with, Ron, I think you've come off as well as being one of the main practical jokers on this hockey team. Brian, have you ever been the brunt of one of this guy's practical jokes?
Yeah, I have, and I hate practical jokes. So it really, when Ronnie was coaching Washington and they played Vancouver, one of the rare times that we played them, and I invited him over to my office across the hall in the weight room and made the mistake of asking him if he wanted a coffee. Of course he said yes. So I come back and my work shoes are sitting there. I was in workout gear, and he leaves. I go on the ice, I work out, I shower, I put my shoes on, they're both full of shampoo. So I was sour at him, and I had a master key.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah, you wouldn't now maybe. But no, it was, Ron was a little more quiet his first couple years at Providence. He was a shy player as a freshman and a sophomore. And sophomore year, he really just blew out everything as a player. Just had 89 points that year, I think, or 87 points. And his personality began to grow in the room, and he took on a larger leadership role. So it was neat to watch that evolution.
Well, let's go back to part 2 of Ron Wilson and Brian Burke, Providence College, Pat Quinn, and much more here in part 2. Both historians, the two of you, and I know you're an academic, given what you've accomplished in law school and whatnot, Brian. What kind of academic was Ron Wilson back then? Did you have to help him in any way, or was he more than sufficient?
No, well, we struggled. We were both in pre-med. We were like fish out of water. These kids were all smarter than we were, and they didn't have the same workload away from the classroom and the lab. And we both struggled. But Ronnie was smart. He was an academic All-American and great baseball player in high school. Also, by the way, All-State in baseball. But an excellent student, very organized, and not a big party guy. A big part of being a successful student in college is time management. If you're an athlete, you've only got so many hours, and all the kids you're competing against academically, they got those 3 hours that you lose at the rink when you go to practice and do your weights after and then eat. By the time you get done, that's 3 hours out of your day that the kids you're competing with, they've got those hours. So you've got to manage your time well. You've got to study intelligently. You got to stay off the phone, And Ronnie was very organized that way. He was neat and organized. His time management was good, so he was a good student.
We both learned time management from one individual, though, and that was Lou Lamoriello. And I learned early in my freshman year. I was studying one night for these chemistry exams, which Brian and I did not do very well in. And I stayed up all night and missed, before our season had started, we did these off-ice workouts, and I was late for an off-ice workout. And the next day was my test, but Louis made me come in for a separate workout at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I tried to say, well, I've got this test, and it's so important. And he says, I don't care. You're going to learn to manage your time right now. And I learned in a hurry. There was one other incident where I was accidentally about 2 seconds late for a team meeting. The meeting had been moved from the arena to a cafeteria on campus during Christmas break. We played a game that night, and I got a call at 12 midnight, and I thought I'd missed a curfew. I hadn't, and Louis said, meet me down at Schneider Arena at 4 o'clock because you were late. You've got and Louis' punishment usually was a 4 o'clock skate alone with Coach Lamoriello. So I kept all the guys up all night because we weren't playing for a few days, and then I walked down to Schneider Arena about 3:45, and Louis was sleeping in his car. And I learned right there what time management was all about and what caring about your players is all about as well.
Hockey's all about 6 degrees of separation, you guys, association with Lou Lamoriello. The other is Pat Quinn, who's very much in the spotlight right now. Do you get a chuckle watching him on the bench going through that one piece of gum that he goes through and the fiery competitiveness that obviously you two have as well?
Pat was a great boss. Pat was we were new together, in '87 when I went to work for Pat as an assistant GM. I was brand new and he'd never been a GM before, so we were both learning on the job, and he was great at giving you rope. He'd say, this is what I need you to do, get it done. And great boss, very intense man, very bright man, good family guy. We all have a lot in common that way, the family importance. But he was a tough man. When you let him down, you felt, it's like when your dad was disappointed in you, it was worse than when your dad hit you. That's how you felt with Pat. You wanted to succeed for him. When you let him down, when you messed something up, you were like, geez, I screwed that up, Pat, I'm sorry.
I had the pleasure of being on the bench with Pat for a couple of years, and what I appreciated most about Pat, and that was the beginning of my coaching career, was how he delegated responsibility. He allowed me to do the things that I was comfortable doing, and he embraced, like using a computer and video, which probably nobody was doing that at that time. And Pat's old school, but also intelligent enough to see that this could be a little innovative, and he trusted me and let me trust my instincts, and I learned a lot from Pat, and most importantly was basically the ability to delegate responsibility to your assistants and make them feel important, and I think that's huge. We've got a great coaching staff here in Toronto, and it's very important that they have major roles as we go forward.
Before we wrap things up, Monsignor Caulfield told me as a 12-year-old up in Noranda, Quebec, that when your time is done on this earth, if you can count on 3 people you can consider close personal friends, then you indeed are a lucky man. Do I look at the two of you and probably with each other count each other as one of those ones?
Yep, for sure. Yeah. For me.
Well, for me, if I was in a foxhole, if I had to fight in a war and I was in a foxhole, I'd want Brian Burke. You're right, Brian Burke, Lou Lamoriello, and Pat Quinn in there with me.
I'd pick the same 3 with Ronnie taking my spot. We've been lucky. Our freshman class at Providence included Bobby Nicholson too, and we've all remained friends with Bobby. It was a pretty good class, a pretty special class. Has done a lot in the game.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.